Hey everybody, this is Breaking Ish. This is the discussion. And this is a discussion of Kevin McCarthy. As you can tell, I'm doing this a little bit differently today. First of all, I'm not streaming live for the first time. Secondly, I decided I'm just going to, you know, do something different. And maybe it'll come out to some other fun, you know, commentary in the end about it. Today's broadcast is about Kevin McCarthy. And I have seldom spoken about Kevin McCarthy. And it's because, honestly, I don't really like him. I don't think he's a good leader. I don't think he has any core principles other than grabbing onto power and doing everything he can to provide for himself. He doesn't have the interest of the nation at heart. And I reserved my commentary about Kevin McCarthy for quite some time because, for the longest time, he wasn't really in a position. He wasn't really in a position of power to really do anything. He was minority leader. He has always been Donald Trump's friend and lackey. And as we're learning more and more, over the course of the last 2 years, I would venture out far enough to say that Kevin McCarthy has been an accessory after the fact in Donald Trump's seditious conspiracy. I, by the way, still wholeheartedly believe that Donald Trump committed seditious conspiracy against the United States. And from what I am gathering that Kevin is doing after gaining speakership, he is exploiting. He is exploiting the Speaker's office to overreach into the Department of Justice. He is exploiting to weaponize House committees to overreach into the Department of Justice. He is using the House's resources to defend Scott Perry, somebody who has been named several times in the January 6th committee report, to stop the DOJ from accessing Scott Perry's phone. Now, there are several things that are, off about these things. And then there's Kevin McCarthy declaring war on woke. And, you have to pause and think he's done so much in the last month. If you're looking at it from the perspective of somebody who is trying to compromise our national security and somebody who is trying to weaken the power of the government, to tie Congress up in a separation of powers battle on two fronts with the executive branch, both as intervening in the case of Scott Perry as God knows what, because in that case, the House of Representatives really has no say. If the DOJ finds that there is probable cause for Scott Perry, for any evidence in Scott Perry's phone, and pursues it pursuant to a warrant, lawful search warrant issued by Article 3 magistrate, then the House does not have any jurisdiction nor any power to, or any standing, no matter from which way you look at it. From oversight standpoint, it doesn't have any authority. From uh, from the standpoint of joining Scott Perry because of the interest of the Article 1 branch of government in preserving the, the sanctity of the Article 1 branch of government. Well, the DOJ isn't going after and investigating the House's phone. The DOJ is going after Scott Perry's phone. And for the House to come out and defend one of its representatives, no matter what party, during the course of a DOJ criminal investigation and intervening on behalf of the defendant, in this case Scott Perry, I don't recall the last time that has happened. And that is not what Congress and the taxpayer has been paying Congress and congressmen and, Kevin McCarthy to do. They want Congress to legislate. Another big thing Kevin McCarthy has done is created this debt ceiling crisis, and there's nothing to say that the Republicans really won't try to stop the government and jeopardize the full faith and credit of the United States. So on one side, he is trying to bring down our government by compromising House committees. Then he's using House resources to support Scott Perry's defense and court proceedings to block his phone from being investigated by the DOJ, when that's not what Congress is supposed to be doing. Congress is not in the profession of providing defense support to its members of Congress who are under Justice Department investigation. That's not what Congress and congressmen and the power of the gavel of the Speaker of the House is meant to do. The gavel and the Speaker's position is meant to lead the House of Representatives to legislate. But instead, that's what Kevin McCarthy wants to devote the House's time in doing, along with putting people who have been named repeatedly in the January 6th Commission's report on the January 6th insurrection and the planning of it, people like Scott Perry and Jim Jordan. Kevin McCarthy has put them on House Judiciary Oversight and Intel committees. And Jim Jordan has threatened to subpoena and try to get into DOJ ongoing criminal investigations, or investigations generally speaking. Jim Jordan has sent letters to the DOJ to disclose information about Joe Biden's documents. It has done so about other DOJ ongoing criminal investigation, and it is gearing up to send out more letters, and then this is going to proceed to subpoenas. And DOJ is never going to budge. This is going to go to court, and it's going to amount to something to the effect of congressional overreach into core executive branch functions, much like the 11th Circuit ruled that Eileen Cannon abused her discretion in overreaching into core executive branch functions in the special master case. So it is a fundamental corruption in the sense of uh, grinding the government to a halt from getting accountability for people who attacked our republic on January 6, 2021. Because, the funding is also going to stop, the cause of the funding and the debt ceiling and all of that is also going to stop DOJ funding. So that investigation and any sort of investigation will be delayed, stopped, halted. That's their goal, among others. The other goal is to disenfranchise people and scare them into following agendas that would suit special interest groups to increase their profit margin. Then it would be something to the effect of a 30% sales tax. I don't know if that's another distraction, that's another, ploy. Then there's the eliminating of veteran members of intel committees while putting seditionists who are named in the January 6th report on these committees and saying to the Democrats that, well, there are 200 Democrats among who can serve on these committees. Why just people like Adam Schiff and Eric Swalwell? When at the same time he seats Scott Perry and Jim Jordan and Marjorie Taylor Greene onto relevant committees that would oversee the Department of Justice and the Department of Homeland Security. So, then there's the war on woke, right? As I mentioned in my previous segment, is just another new term for the race war. Just another term for going after liberalism, going after pluralism, going after diversity, going after African American rights, going after African American history, going after LGBT rights, going after LGBT history, going after women's rights, going after the right to choose. And Kevin has mobilized all of this in the course of 1 month. Excuse me. So don't say that Kevin McCarthy is not productive. He may not be productive in a legislative sort of way. He may not be productive in the way that Article 1 intended the office of the Speaker to be used, but he's extremely productive in achieving the goals of whoever is spinning everything, And I keep wondering. And that's when conspiracy theories come into mind, like who is paying, and the same person who is puppeteering Kevin McCarthy is also puppeteering Donald Trump. I don't believe that Donald Trump is the puppeteer at the end of the day. I see as the influences to be more removed somehow. And many people will jump to the most obvious conclusions of it being Putin and Russia. And from what we have seen so far, the influence campaign of Russia is so nuanced and so sophisticated that you can see it happening in front of you, but there's really nothing for you to prove it. And that takes me to Sergei Lavrov's comment. One time, a Western reporter asked him about Russian interference in the 2016 presidential election, and he said, with a very smug smile on his face, "Can you prove it?" Can you prove it? That is the Russian campaign, you know? Can you prove it? And that's the game that I believe that Russia has been playing. And I don't know if all of this is tied to Russia, and I don't know if my speculation of saying that Kevin McCarthy and Donald Trump are being paid by the same person, I don't know if that's true or not. But there's a rhyme and a rhythm and a pattern here, and a messaging and a propaganda, and the people picking that up, and the sources pushing them, and the sources have traditionally in their record been consistent in their support of Russia. And it is all so big and so sort of esoteric, and so it's so I believe that what we need, by we I mean DOJ, CIA, all of the ODNI, Office of the Department of National Intelligence, the NSA, all these departments, it falls on them to investigate and find the sources of this influence. And for now, it is a warning for all of us. It's a warning. I am warning you that do not underestimate Kevin McCarthy. In the short term that he has been Speaker of the House, he has compromised the House of Representatives. He appointed seditionists to critical committees, weaponized House committees to obstruct justice, and intervened in the DOJ's court battle on behalf of Scott Perry over Scott Perry's phone. The GOP plays the distraction game really well, and Kevin McCarthy plays the distraction game really well. And, making some absurd comment about George Santos being better than Joe Biden, and I don't know. I didn't really even listen to his rant. I just looked at his smug face, and I knew that it was meant to be sensational. It was meant to, for some reason, distract away from everything else that he was doing, But that's near impossible to do in the information age. And even if things are in full sight, full view, and it can't be proven in a court of law, and it is, but it is being proven in a court of law, the McGonigal indictment, the Yonov indictment, the Senate reports, the January 6th report, the Mueller report, now news about how much the Mueller report was corrupted by Barr and Durham and McGonigal. And it sort of gives you an idea of how corrupt and how vulnerable and still under threat our country is. And that distraction game, taken together with Kevin McCarthy's sense of vengeance and having these chips on his shoulder and scores to settle with people like Adam Schiff and Eric Swalwell, and now possibly Ilhan Omar, you don't underestimate him. He has weaponized House committees. He has weaponized the resources of the people to obstruct investigations, to delay the funding of the federal government for the sake of obstructing justice and delaying investigations into members of the Republican Party. He's using the people's money to obstruct justice. He's using the people's time to obstruct justice. And he has done all this in his first month as Speaker. And I want you to not underestimate the threat that he poses. And lastly, if you're new to my channel, please like and subscribe and click the bell notification. I rely on your support. I appreciate it. And as you can tell, I'm in mirror mode. So I'm going to disappear now. Ta-ta!